Good morning, I'm Lucas Panzika. Titans OTAs continue today at St. Thomas Sports Park. Assistant coaches met with the media and wide receivers coach Rob Moore discussed Treylon Burks' early issues in workouts, confirming the Titans' first-round pick has asthma.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. Some of those things that happen were kind of out of his control. Just the kid is, got asthma. Those things happen.
The team waived offensive lineman Derwin Gray on Monday and claimed offensive lineman Carson Green from Houston. Titans head coach Mike Vrabel will meet with the media at 11:15. Rams All-Pro defensive tackle Aaron Donald is now the highest-paid non-quarterback in the NFL. Donald reworked his contract to receive a $40 million raise over the last 3 years of his contract, with the total value coming at $95 million over 3 years. And ESPN's Adam Schefter reported 49ers star wide receiver Deebo Samuel is expected to attend the team's mandatory minicamp, which starts today. Despite his recent request to be traded, Samuel did skip the voluntary portion of the 49ers offseason program. College baseball super regionals are set, and Vanderbilt's season came to an end on Monday in an elimination game loss to third-ranked Oregon State 7-6. It's the first time since 2016 that Vandy misses the super regional, as their season ends at 39-23. Tennessee will take on Notre Dame this weekend for a spot in the College World Series. Stanley Cup playoffs, the Western Conference Finals were decided as the Colorado Avalanche won in a sweep on Monday, eliminating the Edmonton Oilers. Arturi Leikkonen's overtime goal gave the Avs the 6-5 win in overtime to punch their ticket to the Stanley Cup Finals. They'll await the Eastern Conference winner between Rangers and Lightning, who play Game 4 tonight at 7. Rangers lead it 2-1. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5.
All right, we're fired the hell up on a Tuesday. Welcome in to 104.5 The Zone. I hope you're having a great day so far. We're going to have a fantastic show together. We got a lot of different things to do. We got a lot of different people to talk to. We could talk to you. You could talk to us. 615-737-1045. That's the number. Now, I heard Lucas Panzika's voice. I heard him blow through the music bed that runs under those damn sports updates. Where is he? Why is he not here today? Listen, Robert, I love you. We're becoming fast friends, whether it's by force or by necessity, one way or the other. You and I are spending an inordinate amount of time together. Where the hell is Lucas? He is in the country. Why is he not in the studio today?
I don't know if I'm legally allowed to expand upon medical exemptions.
What are you, Dak Prescott, HIPAA?
I think he had a run-in with the Big C. And
no, of all the different nicknames for COVID you could use, the Big C is not the one that I would inherently go to. That would imply cancer.
Oh, I thought it was chlamydia.
No, oh, God.
I thought that's what the joke was.
I'm sorry, Megan. I'm sorry. Derek R. says, I'm so confused. Where is Lucas? So what's what I'm saying. Like, I hear him with the longest sports update in the history of sports talk conversation. He blows through the music bed, and then I walk in the studio. He's not here? This is garbage. He's going to be my loser of the sports weekend. We're going to call him. This is ridiculous. Guy goes to Brazil for 10 days and then thinks he can just take another week off. Absolute trash. 615-737-1045 is how you jump in on the conversation. No, Lucas is fine. He's in the health and safety protocols. There is nothing to be concerned as of yet, about Lucas Panzika. But if something arises, we'll be sure to have him disclose his medical information rather than get us in trouble with HR for it. So, I've just come from Titans practice. And
it's muggy out there, ain't it?
Oh, God. I saw somebody I was so happy to be able to leave early today. So they'll wrap up at 10:45, which means the state secrets will maintain or will continue to be state secrets until the practice concludes. So I can't tell you who was or was not out there yet. I will do that at 10:45. By the way, Kevin Byard is going to be on the show at 11:45, and we'll have a good time chopping it up with KB. But so I can't tell you what happened before practice begun, which is that the assistant coaches were made available to us, and the person who I had all my questions prepared for was Tim Kelly as the passing game coordinator, right? This is a hot new name. He's going to be the savior of the passing offense here in Tennessee. Modernized football in 2022 taking place at St. Thomas Sports Park. And then, of course, he's not available because state secrets. Can't get enough of them. So Tim Kelly's not out there. But who we do talk to is Rob Moore, who is the wide receivers coach, of course. Now, if you've been paying attention to Titans football at any point in the last 2 months, you know that there is a story singularly revolving around the wide receivers room. Not Robert Woods and his miraculous rebounding, it would seem, from an ACL tear in mid-November. Not Kyle Phillips, who Greg Cosell told you is going to roll out of bed and fill in as the slot receiver for this offense. Not any of the undrafted guys, not Des Fitzpatrick, not Racey McMath, but Treylon Burks and his inhaler. So we asked Rob Moore. In fact, Teron Davenport, our colleague at ESPN. Teron asked him, a lot of the negative has been, initially he was asked about Treylon Burks and the progress that he was making. And then I'll let you hear Teron's question to Rob Moore that elicited the response that we have all been so desperately craving.
A lot of different ways, man. Treylon's worked hard, comes in early in the morning, board work, walkthroughs, everything you could think of, mobile class. We do, it's a lot of different things to try and shorten the learning curve and get him caught up to speed.
A lot of focus on the negative with him, just the problems he had starting off. But what are some of the positives that you've been able to gather?
Yeah, that's unfortunate. Some of those things that happen kind of out of his control. Just the kid is, he's got asthma. Those things, happen. But in regards to, he understands what the expectations are, but I think at the end of the day, it's just really him getting himself immersed in the culture of how we do things here, how we play here, which is different from every player that comes in here from college, because we ask these guys to do things that a lot of teams don't ask them to do.
Wait, what? What'd you say, Rob? Is that an actual verbal confirmation of what Treylon Burks' problem is? Asthma? After all that? After literal weeks of this nonsense of Inhalergate, finally, bless you, Rob Moore, wide receivers coach for the Tennessee Titans, who I'm sure is going to get chewed out after practice because he let the thing slip to us. Now, it's not a big deal. It's just actual confirmation of what the problem is. Giardi and I were talking about this yesterday. Mike Giardi at the NFL Network. You're going to hear that clip coming up here in just a second. And we can take your phone calls on this if you want. 615-737-1045. Does it alleviate your concern to know what Treylon Burks' actual issue is? Or does it give you greater pause that the Titans drafted a first-round pick who is clearly inhibited by a respiratory issue, by asthma, which so many of us have and so many of us can identify what struggles may result from that, particularly in Middle Tennessee, and allergies, and all of these different things combining to make it incredibly hard to get through an NFL conditioning workout. Hightower on YouTube says, I don't get why people are so worried about the asthma. People have it, some don't. Who cares? Well, I guess just because if you're looking for a reason for it to bother you, you're looking at the idea, okay, it's clearly inhibited him in certain practice settings. And I can't tell you whether he was or was not out there today yet. You'll have to wait until 10:45 for that because state secrets must be kept according to the rules of Titans practice reporting. But if it worked at Arkansas, why can't it work here? Though there are going to be some people who bring up the idea that the Titans drafted a first-round pick with some kind of a condition, right? That's the kind of thing that I think people who are detractors of John Robinson are going to hone in on. Now, why the hell it took until June the 7th for somebody to just tell us that the kid has asthma, I don't know. But it's just utterly ridiculous that we have been going through this for the better part of a month plus, and that Rob Moore, just in casual conversation, it's like, yeah, guy has asthma. Stuff happens. It's going to be okay. 615-737-1045. We're going to discuss this coming up next. We can take your reaction to it as well. Does it alleviate or does it heighten your concerns about Treylon Burks to know that he has asthma? Because for me, I'll tell you how I feel about it coming up next.
The Buck Reising Show is powered by Spring Hill Heating and Cooling. Go to springhillac.com.
So Mike Vrabel's going to speak to the media in an hour. And I want to know, on a scale of 1 to 10, how red does his face turn when somebody asks him about asthma? Because Rob Moore, the wide receivers coach, let the cat out of the bag or let the inhaler out of the case, whatever you want to call it. Treylon Burks dealing with asthma. The greatest state secret in this year of Tennessee Titans media, finally over and done with. Both Robert and I, by the way, it was cracking me up to listen to Mickey Ryan call you Bert yesterday. Has he been doing that all week?
Yeah. They asked me what I would like to be called, and I said, "Oh, you can call me Rob, Robert, Robbie, Bobby. It doesn't really matter to me.
Everything but Bert."
I mean, I said they said, "Well, what do your friends call you?" And my friends in college all called me Bert because it just kind of coincides with like a party frame of mind. Like if someone yells like Bert, you're going to imagine that dude's doing like a keg stand or something, right?
No, I imagine him to be 95 years old with a walker.
Oh, well, we have two completely different imaginations around Bert. I think about like a suave Burt Reynolds who's had too much to drink.
I think of the puppet from Sesame Street.
Bert and Ernie. That's
Bert
me.
and Ernie. Yeah. Anyway. I don't know where my train of thought was going with that. Regardless, because immediately, Vibe Runners, my opinion, it's not asthma. Oh, my God. I'm not.
We don't care what your opinion is.
I'm not doing Titans QAnon today. You can't make me. I'm not doing your asthma conspiracy theories. You got to be kidding me with that. What do I got? We have the thing. We finally got the thing. And now, when we present it to you, the reaction of, not all of you, just some of you, my opinion, it's not asthma. What?
Then what is it?
What? Please tell me your grand conspiracies, your Titans Twitter, dark web, I almost said a bad word, nonsense. It just, this whole offseason feels like the Twilight Zone. This is the right music. This is the Twilight Zone music, right?
This is X-Files.
Oh, same thing.
Yeah, I never watched either one of them.
I didn't see the shows. It's Stranger Things, whatever it is, okay? Like, what do you think? So he's the only player with asthma? Come on. No, nobody's saying he's the only player with asthma. He's just the first-round pick that was struggling with asthma. And we asked about it, and they wouldn't tell us anything. They're not going to give us the players' medical records just up front. Like Mike Vrabel is not walking out with, so they hand us a roster, okay, every day when we walk out on the practice field. Because there will be an undrafted rookie free agent lineman that gets added or waived on any given day, and the roster changes every day. It's a tremendous waste of paper, but okay. So we get a roster every day. In the same way that Titans PR walks around and hands each of us media vultures a roster every day, Mike Vrabel and the head trainer, Todd Torricelli, are not walking around with lists of all the players' medical backgrounds. And, like you go for a physical. What are you allergic to? Well, pollen and penicillin. No, this is not what's happening. They're not going to just volunteer to all of us which players do and do not have asthma. Of course, that's not how it works. It's just the one that we're trying to figure out what the hell's wrong with them. And now we know. So I don't understand why we do this, okay? Just wholesale. And I understand that I'm talking about it. But I'm talking about it from the perspective of why do we feel the need? Now, why do we feel the need to just generally pick apart everything when we have the information that we have been asking for? All right? Because I'm not telling you that you shouldn't be inherently skeptical to a degree, okay? But if we go through a month of Titans workouts and the recurring theme is that Treylon Burks has some kind of issue that is inhibiting him, and we finally get the information provided, which is from his wide receivers coach, and let's hear from Rob Moore again, just so people can hear this, so I can not deal with this stupidity. I'm sorry. It's just absurd. Rob Moore, we're talking to him today. Teron Davenport says, a lot of the negatives have been focused on. What are some positives that you've seen come out of the Treylon Burks situation? And what Rob Moore provides us with is, it was unfortunate what happened to him. The kid's got asthma.
Positives that you've been able to gather.
That's unfortunate. Some of those things that happen were kind of out of his control. Just the kid was, got asthma. Those things, happen. But in regards to, he understands what the expectations are. But I think at the end of the day, it's just really him getting himself immersed in the culture of how we do things here, how we play here.
So that's Rob Moore talking about the situation. And so when providing you with the information, how is the default of some of you? I'm dying to know. Explain it to me, because I understand we live in a world where people have their own set of facts. And I understand that we live in a world of rampant internet misinformation across the board, not just when it comes to Evan Russell and PEDs, but across anything, because Twitter is instantaneous and you can say reckless things and gain a bunch of traction online with them, even when they're not so. It's just that easy. Snap of a finger or literally the pressing of a send button. So we get the thing. We get the thing. And I come in here today and I give you the thing, and that's the response of some of you. How is that? How is that? I'm genuinely curious about the mentality, about the mindset that it takes. Like, I understand skepticism. I think most people would call me an inherently skeptical person. I think you kind of have to be to do a job that requires you to continue to question people in positions like coaches, or if you're a political reporter of state politicians and local government, whatever. Like, to continue to ask questions on things that you desire answers from. Because Vibe Runners on YouTube, who initially said, let's pull up the audio of his head coach at Arkansas talking about his conditioning problems, is that not substantial information in this situation? It's great that you mentioned that, because I asked Robert to pull that clip today. I hadn't heard that clip until somebody made mention of it at practice earlier. And I said I hadn't heard the audio. I still haven't heard the audio. So let's, in fact, hear from Arkansas head coach Sam Pittman last July talking about Treylon Burks.
Treylon Burks is what he needed to do to become a standout, an unbelievable player, is get in better shape. And we talked to him about that. Just going out there hunting them hogs wasn't really getting him in the greatest shape in the world. So he had to do more than just that. He has done that. He's lost some weight. He looks good. He's more confident, things of that nature. He's got 5X hands. I mean, he's just a tremendous person, a South Arkansas, Warren, Arkansas kid.
So what Sam Pittman is saying there, last July, I assume at SEC Media Days, is that correct, Robert? That's where that audio is courtesy of?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
I don't know why I called you sir.
That was very
what
bizarre.
Was that? Yeah, I don't like that at all.
That was weird.
Go and do your job.
Back
do
to the
show.
shadows.
Yeah.
Very odd. But he's saying what Treylon Burks needed, past tense, needed to do was get in better shape coming into last summer for the Arkansas Razorbacks. Sam Pittman is alleging that he did get into good shape. What happened? Went out there and balled his final year at Arkansas. Looked fantastic. Absolutely dominated in the SEC, and not just in the SEC, but in the SEC West, where the best teams in the SEC are. So I hear that, and I understand that we're doing. What's the? Lucas always makes a reference to Always Sunny, right? And it's about the conspiracy theory. I think the character's name is Charlie in Always Sunny. Forgive me, I'm not an acolyte of the Always Sunny show, but there's a GIF always of Charlie drawing like the string like connection points on this like crazy board of whatever conspiracy theory that he's trying to connect the dots between. I believe, Robert, you have the audio.
You want to talk about stress? You want to talk about stress? Okay? I've stumbled onto a major company conspiracy, Mac. How about that for stress?
So that's kind of what you guys are trying to do now with the Treylon Burks thing, okay? His head coach is telling you, yeah, he needed to get into better shape. Got into better shape. What did he do? Look great at Arkansas. If they're telling us, and they're not telling us, I mean, to a degree they are, but when on the first day, okay, on the first day of rookie minicamp, when Treylon Burks has these initial issues and, like, is doubled over, he's struggling so much. Maybe it's an asthma attack, maybe it's not. When he's doubled over and he doesn't make it through practice, we meet with Mike Vrabel afterwards, and we're asking Mike what's going on. And he gives a response about, everybody's got different things that they're working on. We take our guidance from Todd, who is the head trainer there, and then we figure out how much or how little they can do on any given day based on the player's individual plan. All right, fine. So I asked Mike, is there a degree of that to be expected for a player coming into the league, not having been through NFL conditioning before, especially given the layoff of the post-combine pre-draft process? And Vrabel, in a few more words than I have here for you, but basically to paraphrase, said, yeah, they try and replicate with their individual trainers, everybody, whether they're vets or rookies. These guys try and replicate what we do on the practice field here during the offseason. And they can't. There's just no way that they can. It's not possible. They don't have our strength and conditioning staff. So when they get here, they could be in shape, that's sufficient for their training staff at the time. But when they get to the pros and when the professional strength and conditioning coaches get their hands on them, yeah, it's probably going to be a little different than a lot of the things that they were being asked to do. It's completely reasonable. I think that when you look at this, for all the different things that people are going to want to dig in on the Treylon Burks stuff, because it's just a nature of what we have right now. Like, this is the only thing of substance to talk about in a dry summer of football content. And we haven't even gotten to the part where the NFL takes its summer vacation yet. So I get that there is this need to hyperanalyze and over-scrutinize this situation. I saw Treylon Burks play football at Arkansas. If you didn't, that's on you. Because the athlete that I saw is more than sufficient, more than worthy of being a first-round pick in the NFL. Whatever the situation is for him right now, they don't play a game until September 11th. If he's struggling, I prefer him do that at this point in his rookie season as opposed to once we get to actual games. You should too. There is going, and we do this every year, right? This is taking attendance at OTAs. Kyler Murray isn't here. What does it mean? What does he want? What are his demands? What does his agent say? Blah, 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 blah. All these different things. And I get it, right? I got 3 hours of sports talk radio. I got an hour of streaming show. I got 2 podcasts I do a week. It's a lot of talking. And we're talking about largely the same stuff. But it's my prerogative to get on here and tell you whether something is a big deal or not based on what I am able to observe and report on, okay? Now, you are entitled to your own opinion, whatever that opinion may be. But there's only so many times I can tell you, hey, it's not that deep just yet. Before, at some point, you have to damn listen to me. I feel like I'm being super preachy, Robert. I don't know how else. Like, my tone is bad. My tone is just generally bad about this. I'm so sick of it. I have a splitting headache, and I think it's because it feels like the inside of an infrared sauna outside, and because I'm just generally fed up with the Treylon Burks situation. By the way, practice ends in 15 minutes. I'll be able to tell you whether he's out there or not today, because that's the way this works. I feel like my tone is just generally bad today, though. I don't know how to fix it. I don't know how to pull myself out of this.
Do you want to talk about something good that happened today? Like, didn't we get an update on Dillion Radunz? Wasn't that good?
Yeah, but we have another hour of radio for that.
You see, who keeps more state secrets? It might be you. You're holding all your cards to your chest, man.
Well, I have to. There's literally a graph, in my graph in my email. Graph in my email that says you can report on these things at this time. You can report on these things at X time. You can report on this, but not that.
Just tell them it was a classic case of a Eastern Central. I just meant, you meant that time. I thought you meant 5 o'clock somewhere, something like that.
We've been trying to do this for the past couple of weeks, right? to keep me from stumbling over myself after coming from Titans practice and like hitting me with the buzzer every time I get too close to telling you who was out on the practice field today, and then having to shrink back into the shadows and trying to collect myself to make sure I can give you the information that I can or cannot give you. Utterly ridiculous. 615-737-1045. Now, how he continues to condition around the asthma stuff, it's a legitimate story, right? Because you have the head coach of Arkansas on record talking about the conditioning. You have the situation with Treylon Burks where he's clearly struggling through certain elements of what they're asking him to do. It can be part asthma. I'm not going to give you a pie graph of how much of it is asthma, how much of it is out of shape, how much of it is tree pollen or otherwise. Like, I'm not going to do that. I can't do that. It's impossible for anybody to do that. Hell, Burks couldn't even do that if he wanted to. And instead, he's just going to tell us, we're going to ask him about the inhaler. And he's going to say, I defer to Mike Vrabel on that, to Mike's delight. So with all this stuff, I want to see, because Puka on YouTube is bringing up, I think, a general concern of Titans fans. And you can interact with the show on Facebook, on YouTube, on Twitter, and on Twitch if you so choose. We're live streaming there each and every day, all 4 shows. With what she writes is, I just want a sign that the Titans finally learned to due diligence on a first-round draft pick and big-name free agent. Because I think that's a legitimate concern of Titans fans. You gave up a second-round pick for Julio Jones, and he's got hamstrings that don't work. Okay, net loss actively. And you're starting to have to dig themselves out of the salary cap implications and the loss of draft capital that Julio Jones accounted for. Fine. You're looking at Isaiah Wilson, okay? Now, the pandemic draft, the first pandemic draft, there's a lot of issues that everybody had to go through, but nobody got more by it than the Titans did with how poorly that played out. By the way, Darrington Evans, their 3rd-round pick that year, not on the roster. There's a lot of different things that I think people draw to. Caleb Farley and what his medicals may or may not be, and the fact that they have a negligible impact from a first-round pick in back-to-back seasons, and now the Burks thing, right? So you're drawing the Vic Beasley, for God's sakes, and Jadeveon Clowney. After all that stuff drug out, and Vic Beasley just doesn't show up, costing himself $100,000 for the first 10 days of training camp or whatever it was. He's just not there. And they've given him damn near $10 million guaranteed. And you're trying to figure out, this is the solution to the pass rush? This is what they're doing? And then they end up having a historically bad year as far as getting after the quarterback is concerned. Those are fair criticisms right now because there's a larger sample size. Now, Burks, independent of that, maybe you can't do it independent of that. I'm going to assume that they knew he had asthma. I don't know that to be so. I'm sure Mike Vrabel's going to be asked about that today. We're going to carry that press conference in all of its glory at 11:15 for your enjoyment. But with all the different things, that continue to swirl around the Titans, I think that is probably the fairest criticism of them right now, is that there are enough of these issues, enough of these misses, where you look around at where they are and what kind of hole they're trying to dig themselves out of this offseason and go, okay, how many of these are direct results, direct implications of the screw-ups that you've had? No general manager, no scouting staff is going to have a perfect year, a perfect draft, a perfect free agency crop. But this is a recurring theme. Year in and year out, we talk about this. Now, on the same side, you could look at, if you're just playing devil's advocate, you can look at the defense and say, well, they've completely rebuilt that defense outside of Kevin Byard in ways that have made it substantially better. Like, that's legitimately a top 10 by any metric group in football right now. But that's not where people's attention, because you don't have to worry about that. You know that. You're comfortable with that. Even though the same processes that we're criticizing John Robinson for the misses on also resulted in a substantially improved defense and an offense that's looking to be retooled in that same way. Hightower writes on YouTube, I can't wait to hear someone ask Mike this question. It's gonna be something. I honestly wish I was going to be able to be in attendance today, because just to see what shade of red his face turns after coming off the practice field and discovering that, oh, Rob actually told them that he has asthma. Now I have to talk about this bleep. 615-737-1045. Winners and losers of the sports weekend. That comes your way next. All right, so it's 10:45, but I haven't gotten a text saying that the horn has gone off at St. Thomas Sports Park yet. I got in trouble for this the other day because I just had a bunch of tweets scheduled, a bunch of Titans drills tweets scheduled for 10:45, and then immediately had a competitive advantage over everybody who's still on the field. So in the interest of fairness, I'm going to wait till I see people start firing off attendance tweets and things like that, which should be coming your way in the middle of this segment. But in the meantime, it is time for a weekly installment of Winners and Losers of the Sports Weekend. Circus Tent. Who had a good weekend? Who had a terrible weekend? There's many good nominees from this weekend in sports. 615-737-1045 is how you can nominate your winners and losers of the sports weekend, as we do each and every Tuesday. I would like to start the bidding with the Tennessee baseball team. Tennessee baseball has been winners damn near every weekend, basically since their season started, with the way that they rolled through regular season conference play, with the way that they handled themselves in the Knoxville Regional. 3 games, all 3 victories, 2 of them come from behind. It was as impressive a performance as any that I've seen in sports here recently. Tennessee baseball, and the way that they've managed themselves, and the way that, obviously Vols fans have rallied around them, the way that the Evan Russell situation kind of devolved and was handled swiftly and effectively by Tony Vitello in real time. And also, if I can nominate a side winner of the sports weekend, even though Vanderbilt lost last night, which is unfortunate because their season did come to an end, but oh my God, Enrique Bradfield Jr. What an unbelievable play in the outfield to rob somebody of what should have clearly been a home run, even though Vanderbilt lost. Winner of the sports weekend, Tennessee baseball, and just by extension, Enrique Bradfield Jr. Robert, who you got?
My winner of the week, I wonder if we're all going to go baseball here, because I'm going to go ECU baseball.
Oh.
They clutched up the Super in a game yesterday against Coastal Carolina. I think the final was 13-2. They crushed it. So now a team that at the beginning of the season was on the brink of maybe they make it, maybe they don't. Now they get to host Texas in little old Greenville, North Carolina. It's a podunk town. Nothing's there besides bars and sub dogs. That's
Excellent.
about it. And they get to host Big Money Texas. I'm very excited about it. Looking forward to the game. Wish I could be there.
So I have a different loser of the sports weekend, but a side loser, since I have a side winner today, that ump who pushed the ECU batter to run faster instead of letting him enjoy his walk-off home run.
Come on.
It was such garbage. I hate people who suck the fun out of baseball. The reason I like Tennessee so much is because that's what it looks like when you let kids have fun playing baseball. Now, we have on the line the loser of the sports weekend, in my humble opinion, but since he's here, we might as well allow him to have a winner of the sports weekend too. Is Lucas Panzika on the phone line right now?
Yes, hello.
What are you doing?
What do you mean, what am I doing?
Why am I talking to you on the phone line instead of in the studio today?
I would love to be in the studio today, but health and safety protocols suggest that I should stay home. It is the responsible thing to do. But yes, I am back in America. I got back yesterday after 32 hours of travel with several delays. It was a nightmare.
So who's your winner of the sports weekend?
My winner of the sports weekend is the Ukrainian national soccer team, who got into a playoff with Wales on Sunday. I was watching the São Paulo airport. They lost 1-0 in a 34th minute own goal to not gain qualification into the World Cup. Wales gains qualification for the first time in 64 years, but the Ukrainian national team making it all the way to that playoff final with everything that has been happening in Ukraine, the amount of fans that were there supporting their national team, and they did them proud. It was really an emotional scene out there to see them first beat Scotland in the playoff semifinal. They did come up short, but They did their nation very proud in the midst of everything that's happened right now with the Russian invasion. They are my winners of the weekend.
Are you comfortable with being my loser of the sports weekend, given the fact that you traveled 32 hours, that you showed everybody your meat pics on Instagram, only to return from Brazil and not be able to come to work for an additional week?
What you said is
Okay,
meat
now,
pics?
first of all,
Yeah,
I
meat
feel
pics.
like there should be some clarification there. By meat pics, you mean steaks and ribs and pork. So let's go ahead and clarify that right now.
No.
Some of the amazing food that I had there in my homeland of Brazil. Yeah, I'm told everything went well without me, which is kind of disappointing. You know, it's good to be missed.
You're the loser of the sports weekend. Back to the shadows. I'll talk to you later.
Wait, well, what have I missed other than pearl clutching over a Jordan Beck middle finger and Deshaun Watson still being a creep?
No, you've basically summed up the last week of sports news. That's about it. Oh,
Okay.
and Treylon Burks has asthma. That's about all I have for you today.
Yes, all good there. Okay, I will see you soon.
All right, very good. Back to the shadows. Not too soon, though, because I don't want to be in the health and safety protocols. Robert, who's your loser of the sports weekend?
I'm glad he mentioned the pearl clutching because I gotta throw. I think his name was Bill. I don't know what the hell his name was. Because
Bill and Franklin.
As soon as he got so upset, I immediately went into, oh, I hope Buck crushes this guy. But I've got a little bit of audio. You're going to wait till I run across the room to play it for you.
That's okay. I'm a professional. I can stall because Bill and Franklin called at the very end of the show yesterday because we had been having a conversation about Jordan Beck flipping the middle finger to the entirety of the Georgia Tech outfield as he scored or helped score the game-tying run. And as a result, we had many people calling or complaining about the lack of sportsmanship. I saw several tweets that people were sending me about, children who saw that on television, all of a sudden flipping off drive-through employees and things of that nature because it was hilarious, which also I'm now actively rooting for every small child out there who saw the Jordan Beck home run. And then after the fact, the middle finger to just be flipping double birds to everybody that they come across. I want that for everybody, considering that I'm not a parent and I have no attachment to parenting skills. But Bill and Franklin did not like our position on more middle fingers, less sportsmanship, and less class, and he made his position clear on the radio show yesterday. Let's get a phone call in before we do some polls. We got Bill in Franklin. Hello, Bill.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm just listening. I'm doing great.
Go ahead.
I've been listening, and I just feel as though your comments are just irreprehensible.
Okay.
I can't imagine someone in your position who's making these kinds of comments about you could care less about class and you could care less about sportsmanship.
Mm-hmm.
That says all it needs to say about you and the station, because you are representing that station, period. And so they don't care about it either. So I'm blown away.
Well, that's Bill and Franklin, Robert Walsh's loser of the sports weekend.
Irreprehensible. I can't even say the word he said.
So he what he meant to say is reprehensible.
There you go.
But the word that came out of his mouth was irreprehensible, which of course would mean not reprehensible. So he was in fact agreeing with my position that sportsmanship and class have no place in sports. Loser of the sports weekend, Bill and Franklin, according to Robert Walsh. Did I summarize that well enough for you? I feel like I kind of stole your thunder.
You got it figured out, man. Honestly, I'm down with the kids flicking off people. Because how many times have you seen it? How many times have you been flicked off by a kid and been mad? Like you got butt hurt because a little kid flicked you off. Like, what does it mean anything?
Never. Maybe you show, maybe you show solidarity and like kind of be like,
yeah, I got two of them. I got two mics right here. Check one, check two. They don't like no feedback. What's up, little kid? You want to step up? Let's get it then.
You are not.
I'll fight a little kid. I don't care. I ain't got kids neither.
You are not out here flipping double middle fingers to a child who would erroneously flip you off.
I think I would.
I think you would too.
Okay, I'm glad we're in the same boat here.
Yeah, I think we've determined that about Robert Walsh is that he gives not for your etiquette and for your child rearing. He's going to flip your child off as soon as that child dares raise a middle finger to him. Nice Joe Dirt reference. It's Jay on YouTube. Lebowski says the phrase Lucas's meat pics has to be some kind of an FCC violation. Yeah, go check it out on his Instagram story. He's just posting all kind of meat pics. Him and Draymond Green. That's about the list.
And Tom Brady yesterday. Did you see that video from Giselle? Talk about meat pics.
Whoa. What? Yeah. Hey, turns out winner of the sports weekend, Tom Brady.
There you go. That guy's got a cannon.
What? Okay. Thank you for the subtlety of saying that.
You know what I mean? He's a quarterback.
No,
Yes.
I understand. I just, you didn't have to take. I'm trying to make jokes subtly about Tom Brady being well endowed, and Robert just runs to the microphones. He's got a cannon. Go to break.
Good morning, I'm Lucas Panzika. Titans OTAs continue today at St. Thomas Sports Park. Assistant coaches met with the media and wide receivers coach Rob Moore discussed Treylon Burks' early issues in workouts, confirming the Titans' first-round pick has asthma.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. Some of those things that happen were kind of out of his control. Just the kid is, got asthma. Those things happen.
The team waived offensive lineman Derwin Gray on Monday and claimed offensive lineman Carson Green from Houston. Titans head coach Mike Vrabel will meet with the media at 11:15. Rams All-Pro defensive tackle Aaron Donald is now the highest-paid non-quarterback in the NFL. Donald reworked his contract to receive a $40 million raise over the last 3 years of his contract, with the total value coming at $95 million over 3 years. And ESPN's Adam Schefter reported 49ers star wide receiver Deebo Samuel is expected to attend the team's mandatory minicamp, which starts today. Despite his recent request to be traded, Samuel did skip the voluntary portion of the 49ers offseason program. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Hour number 2 on this Tuesday. Welcome into 104.5 The Zone. Hope you're having a great day so far. We're happy to have you guys in for the rest of the show. We're with you until 1 o'clock for Blaine and Mickey takeover. 3HL after that. 615-737-1045 is how you jump in on the conversation. Kevin Byard is going to be here in just about 40 minutes from now, and Mike Vrabel will speak in 10 minutes at the podium at St. Thomas Sports Park. Titans concluding today's OTAs on the field. And I can tell you, after learning that Treylon Burks was dealing with asthma from wide receiver coach Rob Moore earlier this morning, now I can officially tell you that Treylon Burks wasn't at practice today. Now, he wasn't the only one, but obviously that's notable at this point. I did not see Danico Autry, Jeffrey Simmons, Harold Landry, Nate Davis, Derrick Henry either. But those guys haven't been present for any of this stuff so far. Buster Skrine is a new face that I hadn't seen for the past couple of weeks, and Buster Skrine has been or was at practice today. Now, a handful of players are speaking with the media currently, and I know that we're going to hear from Caleb Farley, who spoke for the first time in quite some time. Haven't heard from Caleb Farley in a while. Now, Robert, what question is Caleb Farley being asked in this clip? Because I haven't had the opportunity to hear it myself yet.
I don't know the question he's being asked because it's just his response, but it's him talking about how he feels mentally and physically after adding the extra weight.
Excellent. Let's hear from the former Titans first-round pick.
I had put on some weight. It's more about just being in good shape. Less important the weight and more about just being strong and in good shape and healthy.
How have you approached the offseason, knowing that this is a good opportunity for you to nail down a starting spot?
I'm just taking it day by day and enjoying the process and loving what I do and, trying to put everything I have into it to continue to gain the respect of my coaches, my teammates, the community, and just be thankful for my opportunity.
Where are you as far as a mental standpoint, as far as the confidence and the knee and being able to cut and plan on it and everything?
I'm extremely confident. I'm always confident, and I'm mentally better than I've ever been.
So that's Caleb Farley. Teron Davenport is who that audio is courtesy of. Titans coming off the practice field. I know Taylor Lewan is going to speak today as well. Ben Jones and David Long will be the two players at the podium. We have to make an executive decision whether we want to carry that later or not, Robert. We'll see. Maybe we'll put it on a poll and we'll let people decide before the noon hour. Once Robert gets off the phone, we can put that on the poll at Buck Reising on Twitter, where, of course, we will update the polls at the end of the show. But there's a lot of different things to keep an eye on as we get closer to mandatory minicamp that's coming up on the horizon. And Caleb Farley continues to be a pretty big storyline. Now, we talked to Anthony Midget today, the DB's coach, And basically on the progress of Caleb and how far along he is and how much work he still has yet to do, they've been nothing but optimistic. They've been nothing but they've really done nothing but praise him and the abilities that he has shown both in the classroom and now in the practice field, because he hasn't had limitations out there. To my knowledge, he's been out there every day that we've been allowed to be out there, and Caleb Farley looks to be fairly smooth at this point, coming most recently off of the ACL tear that he suffered in October. Now, on the same note, as we kind of keep an eye on position battles that are upcoming, it seems that we do have a determination at right tackle, where at least Dillion Radunz is getting the lion's share of the reps. We talked to Keith Carter, their offensive line coach, about Dillion Radunz earlier this morning, just to kind of, get a gauge of how the staff is viewing him and the work that he's being asked to do. And this was Keith Carter earlier today.
Yeah, he's working a lot at right tackle right now, and he's doing a nice job. He's progressing, the way we had hoped, and we're excited. But still, we got to get pads on, like you guys know, and play real football too. But he's doing a good job.
What's that kind of mean for his development? They sort of focused a little bit more on one position, and also, I guess, for the offensive line in general.
Yeah, I think it just gives him an opportunity to get comfortable and, be in the same stance every day and see things from the same side of the ball every day and stuff like that. So that's always important, but it's a luxury you don't usually have in this league until you've earned that starting job, you only can dress 7 or 8 linemen, so you got to be able to play multiple positions. But I think it's been beneficial for him.
What does he need to do when the pass come on to kind of earn that job in camp?
Yeah, I think, for him, he's very analytical, and he's just got to learn to cut it loose and trust his training and trust his ability and just kind of build that confidence to play fast. He's very smart, very intelligent, very cerebral. And it's just breaking through that wall of overthinking and having that slow you down.
So that's Keith Carter talking about, the idea of breaking through that wall and letting overthinking in a certain position slow you down, which was kind of the same comments they were making about him last year, which is, there's going to be a learning curve for everybody, but you would like to hear some variation, basically. Now, he looks physically bigger. He's obviously had an offseason to go through an NFL-style strength and conditioning program. And we can get into this because now if Dillion Radunz is going to play right tackle, the question remains, who's going to play left guard? But Mike Vrabel is going to meet with the media coming up in 5 minutes, so we will hear from the Titans head coach about all things asthma-related and otherwise coming up next. If you are getting
The Buck Reising Show is powered by Spring Hill Heating and Cooling. Go to springhillac.com.
Thank you very much. I don't know if you can see the YouTube chat the way that I can see the YouTube chat, but every time they start screaming at me, and I don't know what to do because I have no control over whether they can hear me or not. I assume they can hear me now.
Yeah, they can hear you, but mostly when I see them, I just act like I don't see them, so it takes even just that much longer until they get to hear you again because they should just be listening to the radio show.
Excellent. Well, it is kind of weird to cannibalize our audience that way. Anyway, Mike Vrabel's at the podium. We go live to St. Thomas Sports Park right now.
From 3 to 4, how much tougher does that maybe once you get into the season? Decisions when it comes to health, and you always put a priority on staying healthy, but with the rules on IR return, does that make it even more important to be as healthy as possible this year?
Well, they're not our rules; they're just the NFL rules, and we try to follow them the best that we can. We'll see how it goes. See how many guys are going to be out for an extended period of time. We'll have to manage the roster like we do every year. That's going to be important.
Mike, Caleb was saying how he feels mentally stronger than ever. How does that show up on a regular basis inside the building?
I think that's about the only place that it can right now with the work that he's doing. Just because he really hasn't been tested, but he's I think just really ahead of where he was obviously last year mentally, which is a great sign. Is that he's taking the time in the off season. He was ready to go before we started installing. He wanted an iPad. He's working on his rehab. He was focusing on things that he could do while he was rehabbing, and that translated to a good understanding, a very strong understanding of what we're going to be doing. He's been able to get some work in. As you guys can see, that's been limited, but that's all we ask him to do is focus on the things that they can do.
You'll be at the mini camp next week. What's left, or what do you want to do next week that maybe you hadn't done yet?
I guess you'll find out next week, Jimmy.
What have you liked about what you've seen so far, and what needs to improve?
Well, I think we're trying to get into some conditioning. I think there's been some days with some heat. We saw us move down here into the red zone, the high red, which is critical. That we play well on both sides of the football in that area, but we'll continue to move down into the red zone. Always leery of that and the speed because the distance is, space is decreased. So without pads on, it's critical that we're smart, but also introducing those low red concepts on offense and defense.
Pics of Jeffrey Simmons at the Von Miller camp. You like guys going to various individual camps like this, whether it's tight end, whether it's defensive line or so forth. You appreciate what they can gain from those kind of things?
I don't know. I haven't been to them, so I wouldn't know what they could gain or what they do.
Golden Woodside has had a lot of game reps other than preseason and all. What are some of the things that he's done that's kind of earned your trust and his teammates' trust?
Well, he prepares. Prepares as the starter. He hasn't had to. But he's got great command of our offense. I think that continues to show. I think his leadership has improved. His ability to get guys, lined up, hold them accountable. But it's different, and we're going to have to give those guys opportunity to compete, in the training camp and every opportunity that we can here in practice when we, scrimmage. But his understanding of what we're doing, the details of the play, the progression, getting us in the right protections, that's all been really, really positive.
Rob Moore said today that Treylon's been dealing with a setback from asthma. How confident are you that Treylon will get that worked out and be ready to go for the start of the training camp and the preseason?
Yeah, very confident. That's got a lot of confidence in all our players to prepare. And, we got a few weeks, quite a few weeks here before we do go to training camp.
Are you surprised by that?
Surprised by what? I try not to get too surprised, but I'm sure you guys will disagree. But
The asthma setback with Treylon.
No, and that's not, we deal with a lot of different things. He just, that's something a lot of guys deal with. Again, we've touched on this.
Not practice today. Is there a specific reason for that, and how do you feel about your first-round pick not being out of practice today?
He was unavailable.
I assume, did you guys know that he had asthma? Is that something that's covered?
Yeah, there's a long medical history, yeah. Anything else?
Ask Garrett, did you know a little bit about him, through Ohio State ties or anything like that? Or?
No, obviously, I watch him when I can, but we got business to do here. Been a while since we recruited him. Spent time with him, some good time with him at the pro day. Understand the program that he's come from, and he's the group of young defensive linemen is positive. And I mentioned they're all kind of different, right? They all kind of not only look different, they got a different skill set, and so excited to see what those guys can do. And the role that they can develop when training camp comes.
Mike, when you have a guy like Chig who kind of has all the physical tools but maybe needs to obviously refine and learn the offense, what's the challenge in a tight end position where you can do some things like 7-on-7 and run routes, but you also need to block and do all the things on the line that you can't be all that physical right now, and how's he coming along with that?
Well, I think he's doing everything that we're asking him to do. There's, it's hard to get some of those reps that you're going to need against another body without pads on. But we're also going to have to, do a good job and be creative in how he, does block and where we put him. It's not going to hold up against a 280-pound defensive end that wouldn't be fair. So hopefully we can continue to find ways to have him be in there and help us when we do run the football, and do some of the things that his natural skill set would lend him to be able to do when we throw the football, which, is showing up more and more.
Mike, Dillion says he wants to win the right tackle job. Do you want him to win this right tackle job?
Yeah, I want every player that's competing for something to get it. He's worked hard. He's put a lot of time in, and he knows that he's going to have to go to training camp and earn a spot like most everybody else. Obviously there are some spots here that, you feel pretty good about, but, Dillion is excited about competing. He hasn't, shied away from it. He's worked hard. So looking forward to a great training camp with him.
Mike, how do you view the spring in terms of, the balance of installing stuff and specifics, but also versus culture, getting in shape, things like that? Like compared maybe even to other teams, or even how you did it as a player. What's your overall, philosophy on the goal of the spring?
Well, it's improvement, it's development. We'd asked every player and coach to be willing to make a connection with their teammates and with the coaching staff, understanding that not everybody's going to be best friends. You're going to have a different relationship with some others than you will, some guys, but just be willing during this time of the year to create those connections, be willing to learn, be willing to improve, and. I think for the rookies, I kind of noticed some of this install kind of gets to be a lot. So we've, that's why you see some of the two-spot stuff is where those guys can focus on maybe some of the base stuff and allow them to develop. I think that there was, once you get into 6 and 7 installs, I started to see, a little bit of regression that I thought we were, from where we were. And so they've dialed back, and now they're just able to focus on maybe some of the earlier stuff and see if they can continue to improve. And then with the veteran guys, we just have to keep plowing ahead, and then we'll give it to them again once we get to training camp.
You alter
considered that at all, being head coach?
I mean, I think we do that, based on really each and every week, each and every day. And whatever we did 3 years ago is going to be different. There's going to be some similarities. And, it's the same with training camp and through the season. We see where the team is and kind of try to make a decision what's best for them.
You're listening to Titans head coach Mike Vrabel at the podium following today's OTAs.
Minicamp, were you able to remember just how valuable this time is for some of the younger guys and rookies to get ready to go?
Well, I mean, I think it's critical for everybody. I mean, I think that spending time with your coaches and your teammates and doing stuff. I mean, we ran plays to yesterday and today that we've scored touchdowns on or defended in the season. To say that those reps don't mean anything, I don't agree with that. I showed the team numerous examples of stuff that we did in OTAs that we used in the season.
How excited are you to get the guys that haven't been here back next week and have the team whole as well?
Well, I mean, I'm excited to coach everybody that comes, and I would imagine most of those guys will come that haven't been here. Just because they bring, each of them brings something new and different and exciting, and I have relationships with them, and so it's just more guys adding to what we have here, and the dynamic of building a team with different personalities and different people and different skill sets.
Talking about the Woodside out there, what's he shown over the last 4 years to have you guys comfortable with him as far as running the system and understanding the way things operate?
I mean, I think he just comes in, he competes, and the guys that we've had him compete against, he's outplayed them, outperformed them in training camp because, his understanding of where to go with the football and the audibles, the checks, all the different things that go into playing quarterback.
Have you talked to Derrick Henry recently or touched base with him about how he's doing this offseason?
No, I usually just check on Instagram.
What do you think about those videos?
I don't check them on Instagram. That was a joke, Emily.
That's Titans head coach Mike Vrabel at the podium with the media. He ended on a joke, but he was not happy about not necessarily happy to be answering questions about the asthma situation. So Kevin Byard's going to be on the show here in about 15 minutes, and we'll chop it up a little bit with KB later on. 615-737-1045 is how you jump in on the conversation. I wonder at a certain point, and this is just the way that my brain works, because now you have two players who have come on, and listen, talented physically and athletically gifted, the two first-round picks in Isaiah Wilson and Treylon Burks. And I'm not drawing any kind of comparison of anybody to Isaiah, okay? But Sam Pittman, who was the offensive line coach at Georgia, where they drafted Isaiah Wilson from, and now Sam Pittman, who's the head coach at Arkansas, where they drafted Treylon Burks from. Vrabel said that they knew that he had asthma when they drafted him, and it will be shocking to no one that there's probably plenty of NFL players or professional athletes who deal with asthma, just as there's a large portion of the population of you guys who are listening to this radio show who probably deal with asthma and the things that kind of come about. But I think my brain immediately went to, well, Sam Pittman gave them glowing reviews about Isaiah. That didn't work out. And gave them glowing reviews about Treylon. So far, you're just kind of, it's a day-by-day thing. Now, just for him to be flatly unavailable today, that could mean any number of things, right? He could be getting treatment. They could have decided that it's in the best interest of him to not go through today's practice, even as it's not anything different as the kind of stuff that he's been doing over the last 2 weeks where he has been available. And by Mike Vrabel's own assessment, not dealing with any kind of limitations when last we talked to Mike. But it's just something else around a first-round pick, and specifically around the wide receiver position, that I think kind of gets Titans fans, cheeks to clench a little bit. You get nervous. That was the whole thing around AJ. You had AJ Brown, and it was like a revelation. It was like an oasis in the desert of all the terrible wide receiver picks, of all the Kendall Wrights and Dorial Beckham Greens, and having the height of the position look like Derek Mason, which was, respectfully to D-Mace, a long time ago at this point. Corey Davis was kind of okay. I mean, was okay, but a top 5 pick. You expect him to be Julio and not what Corey Davis really hasn't amounted to throughout the course of his NFL career. I think that's why Titans fans have this kind of chest tightness, or wherever it is that you get tight when you talk about Titans and wide receivers. It's just been a bit of a tortured history. And I think they're infinitely aware of that kind of stuff. But to have the asthma thing out there in the news cycle, now it puts it to bed. Like, obviously, we're going to talk about it today. I know it's been running in Lucas's sports updates, and that clip will continue to be discussed here locally, probably for the remainder of today's news cycle. And then it'll be done, because there's nothing else to do unless something else arises from Treylon Burks having asthma. And then at least at that point, we have something to call back to. That was something that Mike Giardi and I were talking about yesterday. Mike Giardi, the NFL Network, just the idea of these state secrets that coaches tend to keep. Now, there's been a lot of comparisons drawn between Mike Vrabel and Bill Belichick just because Mike played for Bill, okay? He's not on the Bill Belichick coaching tree, fortunately for Mike, because apparently those don't really work out all that well. But constant comparisons just because Mike Vrabel has success and he played for the Patriots, and so that's the lazy thing that we do. The only place where I really find a connection point, other than Mike and Bill understand the rule book as well, or if not better, as any of the officials who are overseeing these games, who are refereeing these games, they like to keep these state secrets for no particular reason other than they just don't want to get into it. And Giardi posed a scenario yesterday that I found to be hugely believable. And the more that we get through Inhalergate, the more that I find it to be completely plausible by Mike Vrabel, just kind of outright trolling you, me, and everybody in between.
Totally frustrating, because you're like, well, what's the big deal? Like, why don't we not have titles for coaches yet? Why do you give us the standoff answer about it? Personally, what I think is, this is just from being around it for as long, I think they use it to turn around to the players and say, look at these stupid media people and how obsessed they are with the most mundane, ridiculous things. You know what's happening. I know what's happening. That's really all that matters. They don't matter at all. You feed them, keep them in the dark, feed them slop, and, they'll keep coming back to the trial, so we're going to keep doing this. And, again, they have this track record until a couple of years ago, and even last year making the playoffs, where they can just say, like, how can you question anything we do?
Yeah.
We win Super Bowls. You go to AFC title games every freaking year, So, it's
God, it hurts so much worse because it's true. That's what's happening in these meeting rooms where they're just like, look at these idiots. You don't have to tell them anything, and we'll just keep doing this over and over again.
I know, like, they have scouting reports on us, essentially. Like, that's and it's funny because they scoff at the media in New England, like it's a that the Belichick people, like that's media this, media that. But if you talk to people that have been elsewhere that have come to New England, and they'll tell you they've never seen someone spend as much time knowing what the media is up to and knowing what the storylines are every single day. Like he doesn't come into a press conference not knowing that, like, hey, Giardi said your receivers don't get separation. Curran said that, you're on the hot seat because your offensive lines, whatever it is. Like he knows. He's schooled before he comes in.
That's it's like Vrabel scrolling Twitter, and all of a sudden we see the video that Taylor Lewan took of him hitting that punching bag, and we're all taking bets as to which one of our faces is on Mike Vrabel's punching bag. Whoever asked the asthma question is whose face is today on the Mike Vrabel punching bag.
I don't know, man. That the question about, do you want Dillion Radunz to win this job? I think that guy could also catch a swift uppercut.
I feel that many in Nashville media, in Nashville sports would agree with you. Oh, goodness. There's just there's a lot of this subterfuge that I feel is unnecessary. And, at the risk of getting into reruns, because I know we've talked about this kind of stuff before, I think it creates a larger story than need be. But they have their prerogative, right? And, to Giardi's point, there was a point in time where you could not question Mike Vrabel on these kind of things, or rather Bill Belichick on these kind of things, because there was no reason to, right? Bill Belichick wins. They win everything, him and Tom Brady together. It's gotten a little shakier in the last couple of years, but if you heard the conversation that we had with our buddy Trevor Sikkema, I believe that was last week, where Trevor had just done a show for Pro Football Focus where they were going through one reason for all 32 teams to be optimistic heading into 2022. And the thing that Trevor cited first was Vrabel. The idea that Vrabel's getting into this Mike Tomlin category where you just can't count this guy and his staff out, despite what their personnel looks like at any given time. So I think that ultimately, I think that this is the kind of stuff where Mike exists, where they do the things that they feel they need to do or don't do, and what they need to disclose or don't disclose, and whatever helps them win football games is how they're going to go about their business, and that's been a successful formula for them so far. So coming up next, Kevin Byard going to join us. We're going to talk about a great many things. KB, who is now a veteran of many, many years in the NFL. It made me feel old to hear KB talking about, he's getting older. He had to bring his weight down a little bit to help him, help his movement and fluidity and things like that. So we're going to talk with Kevin Byard. Coming up next, I'm Buck Reising. This is 104.5 The Zone. Cracks me up hearing the music, the Oscars music in the background of a promo. Anyway, Spring Hill Heating and Cooling is the HVAC company that can take care of all of your needs this summer. With over 20 years of experience serving all of southern Middle Tennessee, Spring Hill Heating and Cooling is a family-owned and operated company that prides itself on outstanding customer service. Spring Hill Heating and Cooling offers cost-effective solutions, such as a free service call for repair and free estimates on replacement systems. They back their work with 10-year parts and labor warranties and up to 72 months of no interest on new installs. So be ready for the summer or anything that may come your way by getting the best indoor air quality thanks to Spring Hill Heating and Cooling. 2 locations to serve you, Columbia and Lyles, and available anytime at springhillac.com. Okay, welcome back. Buck Reising here with you until 1 o'clock. Titans All-Pro safety Kevin Byard going to be on the line here in just a minute or so. A lot of things to talk about with KB. We're going to run back some of Mike Vrabel's comments throughout the course of that press conference earlier in this hour that we played for you. But some things that I was kind of observing out on the practice field today. Obviously, I didn't have the opportunity to stay for the full practice, but just kind of keeping my eye on some things. Obviously, you gravitate towards the wide receivers, and then when you realize that Burks isn't out there, you're kind of keeping track of, okay, who's making progress and who's kind of advancing beyond where you have seen them over the course of the last couple of weeks. But there'll be plenty of time to talk about that because Titans All-Pro safety Kevin Byard is on the line right now. What's happening, KB?
Hey, what's going on, Buck?
Man, not much. What was your day like? What's happening on the practice field today?
Nothing but work, man. You know how I go. Obviously, another day of OTAs, just trying to get better, coming together as a team. Still, obviously, implementing the system for a lot of the young guys. Still learning, still growing. So, just having fun.
I gotta be honest with you, Kevin. When you talked to the rest of us vultures on the podium last week, it made me kind of sad because you were talking about what you're doing to keep your body right at this stage in your career. And it hit me right in the chest because my rookie reporting year was your rookie year, and now I feel like we've been doing this for so long, Kevin, and it just I don't know. I had like a weird sentimental moment in the middle of that. I'm like, this sucks. This shouldn't be like this. I feel like we're getting old.
Yeah, man. Like you said, it's how it goes, man. But obviously you don't have to go out there and chase around these tight ends and receivers and stuff like that. So I wouldn't expect you to be dying the same way that I am, you know what I'm saying? So, but yeah, man, just let you know, man, time's flying by, man. Just going on year 7, man, it's incredible.
It is incredible, and obviously you've done an incredible amount of great work for the Titans throughout the course of your time here. I mean, when I know this is not the time of year to be reflective and things like that, and I know Vrabel would wag a finger at me if I was asking him this kind of a question. But just, I mean, do you ever kind of take a step back and look at just how much different things are for you personally and for your team since you arrived here? Because that stark difference, Kevin, it's not lost on me. I mean, every day that I get the opportunity to go out and cover practice.
Yeah, it's a blessing, man. I'm pretty sure that even from your first year to how different, even the media, you got new media people in here. Same thing for me. Me and Derrick Henry are the last guys from our draft class. You see the team, guys come, guys go, guys get injured, guys get cut, different things like that. So I think for me, it's just reflective of understanding every time I walk into the building. I'm blessed to be here. Obviously, anything can happen any single day where this could be my last time walking the building. So just a lot of gratitude, just understanding how blessed I am to be in this position.
Titans All-Pro safety Kevin Byard is here with us on 104.5 The Zone, kind enough to give us some time coming off the practice field. So I know there are moments that you're getting to appreciate now in the offseason. I saw that your high school, for example, named their weight room after you. I saw on your Instagram story you were taking a tour and getting to appreciate that with your family and your kids. What are the kind of the emotions that go through you during something like that? Because I got to imagine that hits a little different.
Yeah, I mean, just walking up and down the hallways, man. I was like, those same hallways when I was, 15, 16, 17, I was the hallway going into the weight room, at times during gym class, I used to be out there on my own doing ladder drills, you know what I'm saying? And at the time, I was just trying to become a better football player to try to win a state championship. That's all we wanted to do in high school. And then it went on to try to go, chase a college ring and a bowl game, and now it's chasing a Super Bowl ring. So just real reflective, just understanding how far I've came. Obviously, my family was there. Former high school teammates were there as well. We're sharing stories, talking about, the bond and the camaraderie we used to have and things like that. So, like you said, man, but another thing is funny, and I know some older veterans and retired players have talked about it, man. When you get to those type of milestones in your life, man, all that really means you're just getting old. Retiring, retiring my number there and name me at the high school, it just means I'm getting old, man. That's all.
That's what I'm saying. We're not even 30 yet, KB, and I'm looking around. I'm like, it shouldn't be like this. It should not feel like this, and yet, it's just the progression of life, and everybody goes through it at various points. I mean, if 16-year-old Kevin Byard wandering the halls, between classes and things like that, When you kind of imagine the journey that you were going to be on, Kevin, not necessarily knowing how you would go about getting there, what from what you kind of imagined and were working towards the goals that you had in your mind, what kind of did you anticipate, and what has been completely different from the point that you find yourself at right now?
Yeah, man, to keep it 100, man, being in high school, I would say NFL was definitely in my mindset, but it was in the back of my mind. Like, it wasn't somewhere I just knew I was just going to be this all-pro NFL football player, man. Honestly, it was chasing a D1 scholarship, you know what I'm saying? Coming from humble backgrounds, I was just wanting to go get a scholarship, be able to go to school for free so my mom didn't have to pay for anything. I didn't have to, go to a community college, nothing like that. That was the goal. It was obviously chase a state championship ring, but turn this into a D1 scholarship, and I was able to do that. So I was kind of like a step-by-step kind of guy, because even coming out, I wasn't just super highly recruited. Coming out of when I went to Middle Tennessee State, even when I signed my letter of intent, like a lot of guys in high school, was all thinking I was going to go SEC, ACC, or something like that. So when I was telling people I was going to Middle Tennessee State, guys were like, Middle Tennessee, where is that at? Is that D1 AA? Like, most guys didn't even know where the school was. So not necessarily saying that it was embarrassing or nothing like that, but in my mindset, I thought I was going to be an SEC player, and it kind of humbled me a little bit. So it made me work even harder when I got to MTSU to prove myself right, obviously, but to prove all these schools that kind of, didn't offer me a scholarship, prove those guys wrong. And I think it's been a driving force that I've always felt like I've been underrated. I always feel like, I was a better player than what the world might have thought I am. So that's always going to keep a chip on my shoulder. It's obviously continuing till now, regardless of, what type of year I had last year. I had to continue to prove myself right every single time I hit the field that, I am one of the best. I am the best that I can possibly be. So that's always going to try to, be a motivating factor in my life.
Yeah, the physical accomplishments and the athletic feats that you guys perform, I mean, obviously those are incredible, but the mental stuff is always the thing that kind of draws me in, because when you describe that, Kevin, it's compartmentalizing in ways that no 16-year-old or no, college athlete should be able to do, and yet it's an essential thing for you now and throughout the course of your NFL career that you had to learn at an early age. And I find that part of it really, really interesting, because it's not something that I've ever been able to do in my life, Kevin. I'll be honest with you, ever at any point.
But honestly, man, it's kind of all about just reflecting, always thinking back. So any type of moments and, anytime I've ever had an opportunity to sit back and reflect and kind of meditate on things I've been through or whatever year I had, trying to reflect on that year, similar things always tend to pop up. And I think the thing that always pop up is that, always understand that, yes, you have been underrated, you have been overlooked, and always just trying to find ways to motivate myself every single year, because, you think about 2019, right? I got a new contract, so I wanted to prove the organization, I wanted to prove everybody I was worth this contract. Had a great year. Actually had 5 interceptions. Coming to 2020, COVID year, a lot of different things happened in my life, a lot of things happened around the world. Had a down year. Going into that offseason, did a lot of reflecting, had to go out there and really prove myself, and prove to myself first, but then prove to the world and prove to everybody, prove to my teammates that I was the safety that I knew I was. Had a great year. But now it was like coming off a great year in 2021. Now what's the motivating factor? Everybody's first team All-Pro. Oh, he's great. He's this. What's going to be the chip on my shoulder I had to find this year? So every single year I'm finding ways to motivate myself, finding ways to continue to strive and continue to push myself forward, pushing myself to that next level.
Titan safety Kevin Byard is here with us on 104.5 The Zone. Now, I know you haven't announced a football camp yet, but you have one coming up, right?
Yes, I do have a camp coming up. I haven't opened up registration, but the camp will be in July, middle of July. I haven't set an exact date yet. That's why I kind of haven't announced yet. But obviously I will be having a camp here in Nashville. Super excited about this. It's going to be my 3rd annual camp. So obviously it's going to be great. Going to have a lot of kids out there. We're going to have a whole lot of fun. Going to have a lot of coaches out there, some great techniques that some guys can learn at all positions. It's not necessarily just DB. So we're going to have a whole lot of fun. Obviously going to have some giveaways. We're going to have some camp awards, best camper awards and things like that. So definitely be on the lookout for that, for sure.
Yeah, just keep an eye on his social media platforms. I'm sure he'll post about it as soon as that registration does come up. So we've been, and I'll get you out of here on this, KB. I appreciate you taking some time. We've been taking bets on whose face. Lawan tweeted out that video of Vrabel hitting the punching bag. We've been taking bets as a media corps whose face is on the punching bag. If you had to place a bet on which one of us is on the punching bag, who'd you take?
Well, which one of the media guys?
Yeah, which one of the media?
Oh, definitely Paul. Paul. I mean, And it is obviously it's no shade to Paul, but I feel obviously Paul definitely has a history of from a lot of different guys, whether they're getting into it with Paul, whatever. And I like Paul. Paul's cool. He has to do his job, and he has he's great at what he does. You know what I'm saying? But definitely Paul. I would definitely think it's Paul. But you might be up there too, man. I don't know, man. You guys kind of play that role of I think one thing about the Nashville media, and I think that a lot of guys can speak for that. It is not really the toughest media in the country. You can go to different places, right? If it's Philly, New York, those media guys are really tough on me. But I would definitely say, like you, Paul, you guys are going to ask the tough questions, even though guys don't want to answer it, guys don't want to hear it. But you guys tend to try to ask the tough questions. So I would definitely put Paul, maybe you up there.
I got sneaky good odds on Glennon. I really do. I think Glennon.
You think Glennon would be up there?
I think Glennon
you might be right.
I think Glennon's flying under the radar on this. I think John Glennon's getting off pretty easy. Kevin Byard, kind enough to take some of his time. Thank you, KB.
Oh, no problem, man. Have a good one.
That's Kevin Byard with us on 104.5 The Zone. It's just it's such a weird phenomenon, Robert, that I had with him up at the podium, because I got this way with Marcus Mariota at the end, and you've obviously. You specifically, Robert, are new to Nashville, so I don't think you experienced all of the emotions that Titans fans and people who cover that team went throughout the course of Marcus's final season here. But listening to Kevin talk about the things he's having to do with his body as he gets older, and I'm looking around, I'm like, oh, he's like 2 months older than me, and I hate this because now we're the old guys, and I'm having to, in the same way that Kevin has been doing these things and compartmentalizing his entire life, I can't stand it because now it's happening to us. A lot more to talk about. We'll get into some conversation about the offensive line group. As Robert mentioned earlier, there were some comments made by Keith Carter about Dillion Radunz and what that means for another open job on that starting five. A lot more to go and a lot of your phone calls to take. 615-737-1045. I'm Buck Reising. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Good afternoon, I'm Lucas Panzika. Titans OTAs continued today at St. Thomas Sports Park. Assistant coaches met with the media, and wide receivers coach Rob Moore discussed Treylon Burks' early issues in offseason workouts, confirming the Titans' first-round pick has asthma.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. Some of those things that happen were kind of out of his control. Just the kid was, got asthma. Those things happen.
Mike Vrabel met with the media shortly after, saying that the team knew, of course, about Burks' asthma in the draft process and discussed his confidence in the former Arkansas wide receiver.
Yeah, very confident. That's got a lot of confidence in all our players to prepare. And, we got a few weeks, quite a few weeks here before we do go to training camp.
Rams All-Pro defensive tackle Aaron Donald is now the highest paid non-quarterback in the NFL. Donald reworked his contract to receive a $40 million raise over the last 3 years of his contract, with the total value coming at $95 million over 3 years. Stanley Cup playoffs. One team has punched its ticket into the Stanley Cup Finals as the Colorado Avalanche are in. Game 4 of the Eastern Conference Finals is tonight at 7. It's Rangers and Lightning from Tampa. Rangers lead it 2-1. Multiple PGA golfers are stepping away from the PGA Tour to play in LIV golf events. Dustin Johnson, the latest, joining golfers like Kevin Na and Sergio Garcia. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Final hour on this Tuesday. Welcome in. Welcome back. If you've been hanging out with us so far, we're happy to have you here on 104.5 The Zone. I'm Buck Reising. I'm with you until 1 o'clock. Robert Walsh is back there making it happen. Got a lot of ground to cover in the final hour. Happy to have your involvement if you so choose. 615-737-1045 is the number. 615-737-1045 is how you jump in on the conversation. Now, I saw an interesting article from Front Office Sports that we're going to talk about later on, where Nashville is being described as a mecca. What happened? What happened there?
I hit the wrong button.
Which button were you trying to hit?
No, I wasn't. I shouldn't have hit a button.
Oh, okay.
I did the wrong thing. I did a oops.
I did a oops.
Yeah, that was my fault. I'll fix it later.
Now, okay, full disclosure, does it make you feel better or worse when I bring these things onto the air?
Oh, great. It makes me feel much better that everyone can see that I'm inept at my job that puts food on my table. No big deal. I'm just not good at the thing that I went to college for. Not really a producer. Not really somebody who should be on the radio station. Not really somebody who should be hanging out on one of the best shows in Nashville. No big deal. Yeah, please bring it up every time I mess up.
It makes me so happy.
I'm glad one of us gets a little enjoyment out of my screw-ups.
I mean, what are we gonna do? Like, we're doing a live radio show. if we don't score, like, what am I just supposed to ignore the laser light show that goes off around every one of our promos? It's like, I feel like I'm under fire. I think I feel like you gotta lean into it.
No, I'm glad you do. Yeah.
No okay, we're gonna get through it together, buddy. It's okay. We can blame it on Lucas. If Lucas wasn't in the health and safety protocols, none of this would have happened. Oh, Lucas is laughing. He's in the YouTube chat.
No, he's
this
not.
Coward.
Lucas is laughing at me.
This absolute coward.
He's like my Obi-Wan Kenobi, man. He showed me the Jedi way and then just got killed. Now he's no longer available.
He's just hovering in the background in the YouTube chat. We're going to put Lucas on Zoom tomorrow and screw around and see what comes of it. It may be worse than the radio show we're doing now. It may be better. We have no idea. We'll find out tomorrow. But in the meantime, we have a lot of things to discuss. Now, something that we were in the middle of talking about before I think Vrabel's press conference started, when my attention got distracted, because you guys know I have the attention span of a small rodent. The offensive line situation. Now, I want to play the Keith Carter clip for those who didn't hear it. Him talking about Dillion Radunz primarily working at right tackle right now, because I do think this creates an interesting situation at a position of at least one need along the Titans offensive line, where there are 2 job openings at this point.
Yeah, he's working a lot at right tackle right now, and he's doing a nice job. He's progressing, the way we had hoped, and we're excited. But still, we got to get pads on, like you guys know, and play real football too. But he's doing a good job.
What's that kind of mean for his development? That he sort of focused a little bit more on one position, and also, I guess, for the offensive line in general.
Yeah, I think it just gives him an opportunity to get comfortable and, be in the same stance every day and see things from the same side of the ball every day and stuff like that. So that's always important, but it's a luxury you don't usually have in this league until you've earned that starting job, you only can dress 7 or 8 linemen, so you got to be able to play multiple positions. But I think it's been beneficial for him.
What does he need to do when the pass come on to kind of earn that job in camp?
Yeah, I think, for him, he's very analytical, and he's just got to learn to cut it loose and trust his training and trust his ability and just kind of build that confidence to play fast. He's very smart, very intelligent, very cerebral. And it's just breaking through that wall of overthinking and having that slow you down.
So that's Keith Carter, Titans offensive line coach, kind of discussing where they have been in the progression of Dillion Radunz. And so, that's great. At least we have some kind of a working plan for the Titans offensive line at this point. Now, how good Dillion Radunz is going to be at right tackle, none of us know, right? I think we've seen him play a handful of snaps there. I think at some point David Quessenberry or Kendall Lamb, I can't remember specifically which one of them was starting at the time, but there was one of them got banged up, had to come out for a couple of snaps, and Dillion Radunz had to be inserted. And nothing on film of the handful of snaps that Radunz played last year, including the Thursday Night Football start that he had at left tackle, nothing about that really overwhelmed you, but there's a lot of unknowns about this. We had an interesting conversation about this on, what was that, Robert, Friday when I was on Blaine and Mickey, and Blaine Bishop was kind of on my neck because he felt that I was making excuses for Dillion Radunz, kind of going back to the circumstances that he went through before he was ultimately drafted here as a second-round pick. And what Blaine's contention was I don't care if he played at North Dakota State or if he played at Alabama. He was a second-round pick by an NFL team. This guy should be further along. We should know more about this guy. And, Blaine is right. The only reason why I preface anything around Dillion Radunz with, okay, COVID cut his season short the year before he got drafted, the season before he got drafted, played one game at the FCS level, then was thrust into an NFL situation where wasn't necessarily prepared for it, but as a second-round pick, you damn well better be prepared, certainly because it would be a bad reflection on the player himself and on the people who chose to make him a second-round pick. Tighten Up on YouTube says he made Bosa go to the left side, so I would say he did something right. That's such a misconception about what that game did. Yes, Nick Bosa did switch sides in that game, but it was not exclusively because Dillion Radunz was handling him. They had done well to, one, support Dillion Radunz as the third-string left tackle. You'll recall that Taylor Lewan was not available for that game. And then on the day of the game, Kendall Lamb got COVID or announced on Instagram that he had COVID, so couldn't go. So Todd Downing, and one of Todd Downing's finer moments last year. I thought Dillion Radunz was passable, but it wasn't great by any stretch of the imagination. I thought Todd Downing put together an exceptional protection plan that helped kind of put Dillion Radunz in a position to succeed. We had a lot of this around Jack Conklin, right? Remember Jack Conklin's rookie year, where people were looking at him as an all-pro right tackle and discounting the amount of things that the schematics and the blocking and chipping and things like that were doing to help Jack Conklin succeed, rather than leave him out there on an island. It doesn't mean that he didn't do a passable job. They won the game. And yes, people always have that Nick Bosa switch sides, so Dillion Radunz is going to be a stud. Well, not based off that tape alone. That's hyperbolic, and it's not really studying what went into that game and the games being played by San Francisco versus Tennessee and how Tennessee was countering that with their offensive approach. Those are the kind of things you have to keep in mind, and I think a lot of that gets lost in the shuffle. Coming up next, I want to get into this question that was posed by Front Office Sports, and I want to ask you the question, 615-737-1045. What is it about Nashville, Tennessee that makes professional sports leagues want to have a franchise here? What is it about Nashville, Tennessee that seems to be trending, in the words of Front Office Sports, as a sports mecca? I'm going to tell you the details of this article on Front Office Sports coming up next, and take your phone calls as well. I'm Buck Reising. This is 104.5 The Zone.
The Buck Reising Show is powered by Spring Hill Heating and Cooling. Go to springhillac.com.
Yes, indeed. Great day to have your AC working. If it's not, give our friends at Spring Hill Heating and Cooling a call. So, guy named Owen Poindexter, who's a senior writer at Front Office Sports, put together this newsletter that I thought was pretty interesting. Every morning I just, as a part of the show prep, which, shows the extent of the show prepping we do. What time did we put together the show today?
You really want me to say it out loud? I think we finally got to talk around like 9:43, 44.
I called you at 9:45. We're on the air at 10 a.m. every day, and I said, okay, what are we talking about today?
Well, we figured it out.
Yeah, well, I had Titans practice, and Lucas was, what's the word? Feverishly trying to get a hold of me as early as 8:39, and I just wasn't paying attention to my phone because I'm taking videos of, Ryan Tannehill throwing a pass for the 8 millionth time. Anyway.
Did you use feverishly there as a pun? No?
No, I'm not that smart. I should have. It's not him with the fever. Lucas Curley in the HIPAA, health and safety protocols. We will not disclose all the medical information. But anyway. So Owen Poindexter, who's a senior writer at Front Office Sports, put out this newsletter. And every morning, just as a part of my show prep, outside of everything else that I'm doing, I just Google Nashville sports and see what comes up in the news section of the Google search and see what's relevant for us and what's not. A lot of time it's not terribly relevant. But today, this newsletter from Owen popped up, and the title is just Sports Leagues Hear the Siren Song of Music City. And it kind of goes into great detail about major sports leagues that are expanding across the country, and Nashville being one city that has more to gain in the next few years than almost any other that's in consideration. Now, we've talked about Major League Baseball and the MLB to Nashville thing that until there's legitimate funding behind it, I just consider to be a bit of a Ponzi scheme. Now, that's not meant to be disrespectful. It's not meant to be disrespectful. What happened? What happened there?
Nothing. Just this guy took everybody's money. I don't think it's that bad.
They didn't Bernie Madoff anybody. They just they just went around to a bunch of famous people and handed them a bunch of Nashville stars and jerseys and bats for a team that did at one point exist historically, but does not currently exist, and they wanted to exist. Okay. But, there's no real substance to it. They have tried to put together the organizational pieces, and it seems every 6 months I see a tweet from Bob Nightingale, who covers baseball religiously, about either the Oakland Athletics or the Tampa Bay Rays exploring new places to move the franchise, right? And Nashville always comes up. So with baseball, I've kind of held it at an arm's length, just because there's so much work to be done there that I'm not giving it serious consideration just yet. Other than I understand that people would love to have a baseball team here, specifically if there was a stadium downtown, which again is another logistical hurdle. But with what Owen wrote in this newsletter and kind of detailed how Nashville has hummed along basically as he calls it a mid-tier sports city since 1997. And I think most of us would look around in an honest moment, even if you're the most diehard Vols or Preds or Titans fan, whatever your sports allegiance would be, and say, yeah, sports is probably a distant second in the city of Nashville to arts and entertainment, right? Just to kind of lump the musical community together, Music City for a reason, right? Sports takes a significant back seat to everything else. For example, CMA Fest this week. It's going to be massive. It's going to draw bigger crowds than any sporting event outside of the NFL draft for 3 days, where people showed up to get drunk on Broadway and just watch dudes' names get read by the punter the former punter for the Indianapolis Colts for a hot second, even though that guy turns out is now the most famous sports talk personality in the game. Shout out to Pat for all the great work that he's done. But they kind of detail 3 major decisions that would take the city to another level as far as sports interest is concerned. So the Preds and the Titans have been here since 98. You have Nashville SC, who really launched in MLS. I believe the MLS launch was in the middle of COVID because I believe COVID interrupted their first MLS season, which was pretty unfortunate for them. But they've since then gained significant traction around this kind of stuff. And now you look at it and you see the triple threat that Owen has laid out as to what would make take Nashville from a mid-tier to an elite sports city. So on June 16th, FIFA's revealing the World Cup 2026 host cities in the U.S., Mexico, and Canada. We've talked about Nashville being one of the 16 U.S. locations because they're spreading their wealth around. Now, the Titan Stadium stuff complicates this, right? Because you don't know how much FIFA is going to want to play in Nissan Stadium while construction, theoretically, for a new stadium is going on in the background. So you'd have a construction site to your east and literally a scrapyard to the south of you where the former PSC Metals sits as I understand the financial reasons for it, but like just an eyesore, a blight on the city's skyline or lack thereof. So you've got Nashville vying to be one of the 16 U.S. locations for the World Cup and the global attention that then comes with it. Now, we talked about this last week with the WNBA looking to expand as soon as the next 2 years in 2024. Nashville also among the top contenders for a team. The Players Association has openly pushed for a Nashville team along with Toronto and the Bay Area. And the league has allies within city government here, apparently, according to the reporting of Front Office Sports. This was a study commissioned by Nashville city officials that they cite that 80% of surveyed residents would support at least one of the National Women's Soccer League teams or WNBA teams. The Nashville Sports Authority is preparing a bid for a WNBA team, and the league could identify target expansion cities as soon as later this year. So baseball is probably the most consequential of all of these different things, just from a U.S. sports fan standpoint. World Cup is obviously massive, but that's fleeting. Baseball and WNBA or women's soccer, those are more, those are long-term situations that the city would be looking to attract. Baseball and how Nashville has continued to try and court the idea of it, or certainly the Music City Baseball or the Baseball to Music, whatever the organization is called. Forgive me, I don't have the exact thing in front of me. I don't even though the last time I did this, Robert, I got a DM from somebody who apparently runs their PR and was like, "Hey, I'll bring you by," and which was very kind of him to invite me to come like check out their offices and meet people and stuff like that, so I could have better information on this, and I may yet take him up on that. But I've just, every time I call it a Ponzi scheme, I feel like I'm actively hurting my chances of going on a tour of their offices. An issue for another day. So the quote from Dave Stewart, who's a part of this MLB to Nashville situation, with the amount of people that are moving to Nashville from different parts of the country, it creates the perfect demographic for a major league sport. Now, when Dave Stewart gave that quote, he was pushing for baseball in Nashville, but it's very much turned out to be so. Between the NFL, which is too big to fail, basically. If teams like Jacksonville and Detroit can hang on as long as they have, it's still America's most popular sport by a wide margin. The NFL is always going to succeed no matter how little local support they necessarily have. It's a too big to fail type situation. Now, Music City Baseball, thank you, Robert, is the proper title for the organization looking to bring MLB here. Now, Metro right now at last census has a population of 1.3 million and has grown nearly 2% in each of the last 2 years, turning more of the population to sports teams, right? We're obviously growing. Everybody who lives in Davidson County, and really whether you're in Williamson or Rutherford or you work in Davidson County, whatever, like you see how substantially bigger Nashville has gotten. Hell, as a transplant, even in the last 7 years since I've been here, Downtown specifically, where I live, looks totally different. From hell, when I bought my house 3 years ago downtown, it looks completely different. It's growing just that fast. And they do things in this article. They measure the average Titans fan attendance per home game. They're looking at increases in both the Titans and the Preds, where they rank amongst league attendance. Titans, 12th in the NFL at 68,566 fans per home game, a 6.3 increase from the last time that they were able to have full attendance. Now, there's obvious reasons for why that has grown outside of just population density changing. Titans are a hell of a lot better now than they were when they were kind of sputtering around in the early parts of 2019. And, we were all ready for them to get ready to blow it up again after the Marcus Mariota thing and then Tannehill trade, and everything gets salvaged and you have staying power over the course of the past couple of years. They're a legitimate winning franchise and have been, and the numbers bear that out. So winning plays a bigger part in attendance at Nissan Stadium increasing by almost 7% over the course of the last 2 years. Now, the team averaged in 2019 64,000, basically 64,500, which was 21st. So it went from 21st to 12th in the last two full capacity, non-COVID bogged down seasons. The Preds brought in on average 18,495 fans for the team's 41 home games, which ranks 4th in the league attendance. So even as we've kind of talked about the dip a little bit in interest around the Preds, people still attend these games, right? Where they're not quite as dominant as they were. They're clearly in what David Poyle calls a competitive rebuild phase, but they're still attracting attention. It's still a fun thing to do and to take friends and family when they're in town, or, if you just happen to be wanting to go out and booze on a Wednesday night and Broadway's sitting right there. You got a Preds game in between. You're going to have a big time at any given point. So I think the questions that surround a lot of this, and at least some of the questions that we're getting in the Zone TV chat, you're welcome to jump in on the discussion, 615-737-1045. The biggest question to me is, well, how much of this population growth for us as a city comes with people having previous attachments? And how difficult is it to win people over from their pre-existing fan allegiances? Because Nashville's already been through this, right? The Titans are one of the newer NFL franchises. The Preds are one of the newer NHL franchises, even as they've been around for 20-plus years at this point. You're talking about, I think it's over 100 years of Green Bay Packers football, right? It's just a speck on the timeline of how long the NFL has been around and how historic some of these other fan bases are. You can go back to the original. Is it the original 6 in hockey? I'm going to show my NHL ignorance here, Robert. Do you have any concept of this? I think it's the original 6.
Any concept of hockey, or?
I just mean just general hockey knowledge, because I think original 6 is the proper term for teams like the New York Rangers that have been around apparently since the dawn of the league and stuff like that.
Yeah, I know Wayne Gretzky.
Okay, very good. You mean that guy on TNT?
Sure.
Yeah. All right. Thank you for all your help. Back to the shadows. How much of this comes with previous attachments, right? Because we've got people moving in, not necessarily like me, because you guys got me no strings attached. Now, obviously, the only team that I've declared myself for is Nashville SC as a season ticket holder, because I don't really have to. I have to cover them. And Preds, I go to Preds games as a fan, and the Titans games I'm working. I'm a working NFL reporter, so I don't have any NFL fan allegiance there. So I'm not necessarily your sample size. But we got people coming in from Los Angeles, Boston, New York, just in my neighborhood every day. And they come with attachments, prior attachments, previous attachments to the teams that they grew up watching or grew up around or grew up rooting for. How hard is it to win those people away from what their teams are to where they live now? I don't know if people are quantifying that, if that's something that these organizations are tracking. I would have to imagine that there is some kind of surveying or studying being done by the business operations side of both, or I guess all three at this point, of Nashville SC, of the Nashville Predators, and of the Tennessee Titans. You kind of have to have that at this point, just to kind of figure out what your trajectory is when you're putting together things like budgets and how much can we afford to spend in this season versus what we had last year, and on it goes. Things that are decisions and conversations that are had by people much smarter than I. Now, Jael brings up an interesting point on YouTube, or one that I think has been a part of the conversation, specifically around the Titans for a long time. Says, of the Titans' attendance spiking almost 7% since 2019, he says a lot of visitors at those Titans games. And, certainly that was the case early on. The Preds have never had really that problem because they do that thing where you can't buy tickets from the Preds without a 615 area code or something like that, or rather without a Tennessee area code or a Nashville area code, something like that, which I don't know how that works, and I've always felt to be a little bit, I think you take anybody's money who's willing to give it to you if you're a sports team trying to run a profitable business. But yeah, if you're worried about your visiting fans overshadowing your home fans, then it's not necessarily something you've want. We've seen that with the Bills, the Steelers, the Chiefs, the Packers. The 49ers, probably the biggest contingent of traveling fans that I had seen in Nissan Stadium this season alone. But I don't feel that sense nearly as much as I did, for example, during Mike Mularkey's tenure here, when you're just coming off Ken Wisenhunt. There's bad vibes all around the organization. You still don't have a stable ownership structure. It was before Amy kind of declared herself as the controlling owner, when the league was kind of poking and prodding at this thing, saying, okay, we need a face. We need somebody to assign, credit or blame for the success or failures that this franchise is going to have. And I think that as this thing has grown, you find that Nashville is supporting all of these things much better than most of us, and certainly I would have anticipated. I've been shocked and pleasantly surprised by the support that the soccer team has had. I know it took some time for people to gravitate towards the Preds, but nothing does more for you than winning, and certainly they have been nothing if not a winning organization, making the playoffs each of the last 8 seasons and having played, if not, not having won, but having played in a Stanley Cup final that generated a lot of attention and a lot of excitement. And, the NFL, for all its positives, Titans were a down tremendous franchise forever, and have rebounded pretty spectacularly to get themselves back into the position where they can be the dominant thing in the market yet again. But with all this, it seems like more leagues want a piece of what we've got going on. Star power matters, winning matters more than anything, and how things like the MLB to Nashville group and the WNBA potential proposal that the Nashville Sports Council is putting together, and the World Cup bid, which we will have more details on as early as next week. We'll find out whether Nashville is going to be one of the 16 U.S. cities to host World Cup games. All of these things matter in a massive way. And all of this is done, really, to tribute to the people who run the city of Nashville to make this a destination spot for more than just SEC football, and then in the last 20 years, NFL and NHL as a result. It's really grown into a very diverse and widely supported sports market. And that's exactly the kind of thing that you want to see. Wrap the show up. Last call for phone calls. We will update the polls, and we'll get you out of here on a Tuesday. I'm Buck Reising. It's 104.5 The Zone. We are in the most active season of the year right now. But if you have joint pain, you can't live life like you want to. Whether it's your hips, your knees, you got back issues, or shoulder pain, it sucks the fun right out of living. But I've got fantastic news if you're somebody who deals with those issues. QC Kinetics is helping people here get the fun back in their lives with advanced regenerative treatments from local medical professionals. Regenerative medicine, it's the hottest thing going right now, and it's basically taking growth factors with healing properties from your own body, then putting them into your aching joints. It's exciting, it's in office, it's non-surgical, and it can get you the results that you desire, which is that real lasting relief from joint pain. QC Kinetics is the nation's leader in these cutting-edge, all-natural options, and the patient satisfaction reports have been incredible. Over 100 clinics nationwide, including right here in Middle Tennessee. You can get real relief from pain with no surgery, no drugs, no downtime. So stop putting it off. Call QC Kinetics now to learn more about regenerative medicine and get a totally free in-office consultation. Call the local medical professionals at QC Kinetics, 615-249-4024. That's 615-249-4024. Wrap it up on a Tuesday. Been a lot of fun throughout the course of the show. If you missed any of it, whether it's winners and losers of the sports weekend, Mike Vrabel talking about asthma, or Kevin Byard, who stopped by for a fun segment, you can check that out in the podcast. Simply search The Buck Reising Show in your favorite podcast app. Nothing really to address on the way out the door. Are we missing anything? We got the dumbest thing in sports tomorrow, but other than that, I don't think I have anything pressing, so we might as well just do the polls.
You don't want to talk about Leonard Fournette getting fat as hell?
Oh, that is funny. Yeah, I guess we should. I mean, just briefly. Did you see?
Thick.
Did you see the picture I just tweeted out?
I did. Yeah, I did.
So it apparently is Ernest, me, and Leonard Fournette that need to get 220 by training camp. 365 Scores has tweeted out a picture of what Leonard Fournette looks like at camp for the Bucs right now. And he is looking Eddie Lacy thick. Like 2 C's, maybe 3.
God, when you get paid like that, you get eaten better. That's what happens, man.
Buddy, that's what happened to me. I got paid. I started eating real well. Uber Eats twice a day.
You ain't missing no meals.
Yeah, not one in my life. Not in the last couple of years, anyway. But yeah, playoff Lenny looks portly.
Would you rather deal with asthma Burks or fat Lenny?
Fat Lenny for sure. Because like asthma I feel bad. And like, it's not that I don't feel bad for people who have weight issues, because clearly, I'm somebody who's working through my own at this point in time. But like, outside of people who have like diagnosed medical conditions, weight is something that is largely controllable. And so I have less sympathy for somebody who is, heavier by their own doing than somebody who has a condition like asthma and is having like an attack and he's doubled over in the middle of a June or May Titans practice, because of course you would be. That sounds terrible.
Yeah, if you're heavy because food tastes good, like, I don't feel bad for you. I feel for you, but I don't feel bad for you.
Yeah, nobody should feel bad for me because I like the way that food tastes. But, in the case of Treylon Burks, I don't think he's looking for pity there. I just generally think that those things are less controllable. Anyway, polls. Yes.
Hello, everyone listening to the Buck Reising Show. This is Benjamin Kenobi, better known as Obi-Wan. I have but one thing to say. Lucas, use the Force. Use the Force, Lucas, to help interpret what the hell Chewie is saying. Oh, scrap that rubbish.
Lucas, I am not your father. I repeat, I am not your father, nor am I Buck's father.
I was once a Jedi Knight, and what I'm trying to say is, Lucas, it's time to update the final poll results here on the Buck Reising Show. Do it now.
Lucas is at home. The polls are still presented by Two Rivers Ford. Robert Walsh is going to update the polls. Two Rivers Ford, where you can custom order your next Ford, and they will deliver it right to your door.
That's very nice of them. Does knowing Treylon Burks has asthma alleviate or elevate your concerns? 69% nice says alleviates. 31% says elevate.
I think alleviate is the proper term. There are plenty of professional athletes that have asthma. There's plenty of people in our line of work that requires a great deal of lung capacity that have asthma. Like, people learn how to live with asthma. It's not something that you can't get a handle on with, I don't want to say relative ease, depending on the severity, but you just wanted to know what was wrong. And now that you know, you feel a hell of a lot better about Treylon Burks. It's all good.
It's like a situation like your girlfriend thinks you're cheating on her, but you're like, no, I'm just working late. Like, actually working late.
Like, actually working late.
I feel much better about it now that you're not seeing another woman. But in my case, that would never be the case.
It's one of those TikTok type things where it's one of those videos where it's a bunch of angry girlfriends sitting around saying he's probably cheating on me, and then it pans to a video of guys doing something idiotic as a group together, like sticking Mentos in the top of a Diet Coke or something like that. It's never that deep. Sometimes it's that deep.
You covered all the bases there.
Not
Who keeps more state secrets? Mike Vrabel, Bill Belichick, or the federal government? Mike Vrabel with 38%. Bill Belichick very closely behind with 35%. The federal government dragging up the tail with 27%.
That's an upset. I'm going to say Belichick should win just because, like, we were talking to Giardi yesterday, and they haven't assigned like official positions to their coaching staff. They don't have an offensive coordinator and things like that. Meanwhile, we're worried about wide receivers with asthma or not asthma, whatever it is. But yeah, Bill Belichick is the king, the keeper of the crypt, basically, of the state secrets in football.
Who are the winners of the weekend? Karen O'Keefe says the Colorado Avalanche and Golden State Warriors. Puka says the Mets by splitting away games with the Dodgers.
Yeah, Mets have been, Mets fans have seen this story before, right, where they go through the first half of the season, they're feeling pretty good, and then it all comes toppling down. Dodgers did not necessarily have a good weekend, just kind of keeping an eye on what's happening in the MLB at this point. My winner of the weekend was Tennessee baseball and Enrique Bradfield Jr. for just making highlight reel plays every time he's on a baseball field. The dude is incredible, and it was unfortunate that Vandy lost. My loser was Lucas, because he came back from Brazil, and he's immediately in the health and safety protocols, and he gets another week off work. Trash.
Who are your losers of the weekends? Puka in again says, we are the losers because Lucas is not in studio. And Kenny Pruitt says, I would say you for the workout videos, but don't stop believing. That's very inspirational.
Well, except for the left tackle fat-shaming me on the internet. Taylor Lewan tweeted, just did media. Let me read the exact tweet. Just did media. Buck Reising was not there. Rumor has it he broke on his diet and was eating a pizza. No, I was in here with a very, very sad orange that Robert gave me during the commercial break. $2.20 by training camp.
You eat it and you like it. If Dillion Radunz is the right tackle, who plays left guard? Jamarco Jones with 34%, but Aaron Brewer is the leader in the clubhouse with 48%.
Somebody should probably tell Aaron Brewer that, because he hadn't been at training, he hadn't been at OTAs at all, like in the last 3 weeks. So we'll see if he shows up for mandatory stuff, one would assume. But Aaron Brewer, I would not automatically slot him in as the starting left guard, even though he does have previous experience with this football team. Those are the polls?
Those are the polls.
That's the show. Do it again tomorrow. Dumbest thing in sports. This week, we will have tickets for you to go to a Sounds game as well. Winning Wednesday on The Zone. In the meantime, Blaine and Mickey got you covered. They're next.